Hey everyone, welcome back to week 4 of the NFL Power Rankings. We're kicking off week 4 starting tomorrow. So on this channel, every Wednesday we're coming out with Power Rankings. And hopefully you guys want to stay tuned for that. Let's just kick things off. Things are pretty much the same in the bottom of the NFL. Obviously week 3, a lot of changing things, but I obviously didn't take consideration too much for some teams. Still think a lot of the teams that lost are pretty big powerhouses, but we'll get to that in a second. Sticking at number 32, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. What can I say? They've lost, 20 in a row? I keep forgetting 21. It goes on and on and on. Jacksonville still doesn't really look like they're having a chance to come back. They had a lead a little bit over Arizona, but it quickly evaporated. Number 31, the Jets. Not too far ahead, honestly. If one of those teams win, they'd probably cement their spot at 31 for the rest of the year. Both these teams pretty atrocious, trusting their rookie quarterbacks to try and lead them to the promised land. And so far, it is not working out too well. Number 30, also starting rookie quarterback this past week, the Houston Texans. They had a little bit of promise in week 1, but Tyrod Taylor going down. Not a lot of promise now going for the Houston Texans. I think they're going to be pretty much guaranteed to be battling Jacksonville for last place in that division. Number 29, after a tough loss to the Atlanta Falcons, they fall to 0-3 and pretty much think they're not making the playoffs at this rate. Team hasn't looked super good. Defense looked all right in this past week against the Falcons, but then the offense can't get going. They can't seem to get both going at the same time, and I think that's a pretty safe spot for them. 28, Detroit Lions. They had a pretty good week. They're still 0-3, of course, but they almost upset Baltimore, and they have a lot of good things going for this team. I'm pretty optimistic that this is as low as they're going to go. I think they're better than some of the teams ahead of them, but they've got to pick up that first win. They're in a tough division, of course, probably going to be battling for last or maybe third. But right now, a lot of promise with Swift. Goff has been all right. Overall, they do have promise going forward as a team. Number 27. Can't say the same really about this team. They barely came back and passed the Giants in this past week. They're in a tough division where there's 2 powerhouses, really, maybe 3 in their division at the top. Pretty safe to say that the Falcons are going to finish last in this division based on how they've played over the first 3 weeks. Number 26, we got the Philadelphia Eagles. Ever since week 1 and that win, they've looked pretty atrocious, especially offensively. Getting pretty much blown out on the Monday Nighter by Dallas, losing to San Francisco the week before. In a division where it's one of the weaker divisions, they obviously still have a chance to make a run at it, but Dallas really showed that they're the dominant team in that division. Number 25, Mac Jones. Bill Belichick really struggling. He's going to be facing Tom Brady this week coming up, and I don't like their chances. They haven't really got an offense going, and rookie quarterback not really looking super good so far. A lot of work has to be done in this team. Put them ahead of the Jets, but losing to the Dolphins, they're pretty secured in that third spot. But 24 right ahead of them. We do have the Dolphins. With Tua going down, they almost staged an amazing comeback against the Raiders, but they fell short. And with the division, they're already 1-2. Patriots 1-2. Bills already off to looking good. Smashed the Dolphins already. Dolphins have a long way to go, and Brissett obviously isn't too much of a difference maker on their team over Tua, so I think 24 is pretty good. Number 23, we got the Washington football team after losing to Buffalo this week. It's back-to-back losses. Now, I think I was pretty concerned with the way that they played this past week. Buffalo really handled them as a team. I don't have a whole lot else to say for that. Number 22. We got the Chicago Bears. They could probably be a little bit lower. Justin Fields, 1 passing yard this past week. They really got blown out in that game against the Browns, really. Amir Garrett showing them what real pass rush is. Justin Fields has a lot of room to grow. With Dalton out, they're going to be riding him, and in a division with 2 teams that are fairly stronger than them. I think 22, bottom of the half of the league, is pretty much where the Bears are going to stay this year. Number 21, we got the Indy Colts. Probably better on paper and in performance with where they are, but they're 0-3 in a division that has a pretty big powerhouse in the Tennessee Titans, losing that big key game to them this past week. Really going to hurt their chances going into the playoffs, etc. I forget what the stat is, but we all know 0-3 to start a season is not promising of a future in the playoffs. Number 20. With the Minnesota Vikings. Last week, they were down here at 26. They made some progress. They had a big win against the Seahawks at home. And honestly, I could see the Vikings going on a little bit of a run here up the power rankings. But until I see it again, one game could be a shot in the dark. So until I see it again, Kirk Cousins having a pretty good year so far. Throwing up a lot of touchdowns with Tyler Jefferson. He has all the weapons on offense. It's going to be up to the defense to do what they did to Seattle. And they got to be pretty happy with how that went. Number 19, got Cincinnati Bengals. Making some progress, beating the Steelers. They've beaten the Vikings as well early in the year. Two big wins against two teams that kind of did not look like themselves when they played the Bengals. Still a lot of room to grow for the Bengals. This North Division, very, very competitive. I think projected-wise, they're expected to finish last, but they might, at this rate, pass the Steelers definitely with the win. But right now, I still kind of hold them down in the bottom half of the league. Number 18, the Carolina Panthers. It's actually a drop-off. A lot of it has to do, I know they're 3-0, but their schedule has not been very challenging. They played the Texans on Thursday night. They played the Jets in week 1. And now they're going to be having to go kind of navigate without Christian McCaffrey. A lot of people are going to disagree why is a 3-0 team in the middle of the pack. It's pretty much where I see them ending up by the end of the season, middle of the pack kind of road team. They've definitely made some progress. They have the weapons, but are they going to be able to do it without McCaffrey for the next couple of weeks? It's going to be a big question mark, and that's a big question mark for me. Number 17, got San Francisco Giants. Not the Giants, sorry, the 49ers. Still got baseball brain on. Playoffs coming around the corner. Make sure you're watching that. But the 49ers, tough loss against the Green Bay Packers. Really some clock management issues that possibly gave them a chance to drive down and beat it. I also hold it against them that they're in a very, very tough division. Right now, they're technically in last, 1-2 on the season. San Francisco has a lot of progress they're going to have to do if they're going to be in the playoffs. Last week, I did have them at 15. I lost down to 17, mainly because of the division they are up against. Number 16, probably one of the biggest falls of the week. Last week, I had them number 8. Big Ben, with that injury he was dealing with, just could not get anything going. I do have a lot of concerns with how the Steelers are going to be going forward. Can they even get above 500? I'm not so sure based on what I've seen. They looked really good in week 1 against Buffalo, but it's been a tale of two different teams for both Buffalo and the Steelers since that game. Number 15, moving up a couple of slots, another team that is 3-0, but I'm not ready to give them all the credit in the world because, again, it's another, like Carolina, had somewhat of an easier schedule, but they will be tested, and it's going to be coming soon because this division is looking up to be one of the most stacked in the AFC, and they're going to have to be challenged. And right now, they're looking like Teddy Bridgewater fitting very well with that team. Broncos always been looking for a quarterback, and Teddy might be the answer. We could very well see the Broncos, if they go to 4-0, 5-0, they're going to be in the top 2 rows before we know it. Number 14, dropping a couple of spots from last week. From 11, we had the Seahawks. They traveled, went to Minnesota. They got pretty big beatdown, but I'm still going to give Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf a lot of credit. This team will be able to compete with the best of them. Maybe in the upper echelon of the top half of the league. They're still right there in the middle. And again, it's going to be one of those situations. It's going to come down to division matchups with the Seahawks. Number 13, moving up 6 spots. We got the LA Chargers. People are going to disagree. I know they beat teams that are ahead of them on the power rankings. But to me, sophomore Herbert has a lot of work to do. And he made the first step in the right direction with the big win against the Chiefs this weekend, but they got to keep it going. For me to buy in and to show what I'm going to give the Chiefs up in a little bit, they got to be consistent. They got to be able to do it for a long period of time. Right now, we're week 3. They almost made it last year. They beat the Chiefs down last year late in the season when it didn't matter. But 13, I think, trajectory possibly going up for the Chargers. Number 12, going up a couple of spots from last week. We got the New Orleans Saints, and they answered back in a big way. Since that blowout the week before, they came back with a big win and they got to be happy with how that came out for them. Sean Payton, all them going in, taking care of the Patriots, and they're taking care of business. It's going to come down to how they play in the division. The division's looking pretty tough so far with Carolina 3-0, and of course the Brady and Buccaneers team making sure they beat the Falcons along the way. Number 11, moving up only a couple of spots, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. They beat the Dolphins. They almost blew it down the stretch. They are 3-0, but how much of it is for real, we're still not 100% sure. The chances of them falling out with the Dolphins there could have been disastrous, but they did find the win in the end, and you got to start giving them credit. They're almost in the top 10, being 3-0. They're missing Jacobs right now, but he should be back sometime soon, I would hope. Barber and Drake have been handling the backfield for now, and I think people might disagree. Some of these 3-0 teams probably a little low for people's likings, but again, I'm looking at the overall picture here of where I think teams are going to end up when it's all said and done, based on what I've seen so far this season. Number 10, we got the Cowboys making some progress into the top 10. Very much the clear favorites for their division at this point in the season. And again, super early, lots can happen, but what can you say? They handled the Eagles. First game of the season, they gave the Buccaneers a real big run for their money, and they handled the Chargers. So, they've basically had a really tough schedule out of the gate, and they're been looking pretty good. Ezekiel Elliott had a monster game on Monday. Dak Prescott's looking in top form. This team is definitely going to be in the playoff hunt for sure. Number 9, actually dropping a couple of spots from last week. Even though they won, it was a nail biter, and I'm sure most people saw it by now, 66-yard field goal by Justin Tucker to ice the Lions. Otherwise, they didn't look super good. Lamar's not looking like he can carry this team in some stressful situations. There's a lot of concerns for me, at least, and the defense has been somewhat inconsistent for the Ravens. They have pulled out their last 2 wins by the skin of their teeth. If they keep running into those situations, it's going to not work out like this every single time. So I do follow them falling back based on just the performance of how other teams that also won, how they did, including number 8 now, the Cleveland Browns. And did they ever show Justin Fields welcome to the NFL? The defense just came to play, and Baker Mayfield's not making any mistakes right now that are costing his team game. And again, they've had somewhat of an easier schedule out of the gate. They will be tested. They are in a tough division, but right now, in my eyes, they're the best team in the AFC North. It's going to hold them back, of course, having to play these other North teams. That is one of the tougher divisions. So I think when it's all said and done in the standings, whoever wins the North is probably going to be a 4th or 5th seed in the AFC. Number 7, moving up a couple of spots, the Tennessee Titans. Ever since the Arizona game, they've came back against Seattle. That was huge. And then they handled Indianapolis in a big division series. The Titans are looking good. Derrick Henry starting to be a monster, and they have the weapons, and they just look like the kind of team that's going to cruise to a pretty easy division title in my eyes. Obviously, the Colts being their biggest opponent, and it's 0-3. So they got a big lead early. Let's hope they don't get too cocky in that, and they keep it up. Number 6, he's feeling home. Aaron Rodgers back at home. They looking good with that big win over San Francisco. New Orleans really put them in their place the first game of the season. They have bounced back in a big way with 2 big wins, come back from against the Lions, and then a big win against San Francisco. On their way to being in the Final Four again. A lot of credit going into last season as well. They got the weapons, and they are possibly a top 4 team in the NFC. Number 5, dropping a few spots, we got the Kansas City Chiefs. I know they're 1-2 on the season. I know they just blew a game against Chargers and Ravens, both teams below them. But in my books, they're still one of the top juggernauts in the AFC. They have the weapons. The defense is starting to be a little bit of a concern. And if it starts to look like they're going to go 1-3, 1-4, we're going to see them drop rather quickly after that. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's probably their first 2-game losing streak. They don't really get these kind of streaks too often. Andy might not have been on top of his game, went to the hospital after the game. There's other things. So I'm not going to hold 2 games against them over the past 3 years. Too much. We all know their offense is full of weapons, but we're starting to see that maybe not having Sammy Watkins, that third option on the wide receiver, might be hurting them. we'll see how it looks after week 4, how we're going to have to adjust there. Number 4, same spot as last week. We got Arizona Cardinals. They won. They had a little bit of a rough half against the Jaguars. They were behind, mostly off a missed field goal special teams play, so not a whole lot there. Kyler Murray's looking good, defense is looking good, offense looking good. But when you put them against these top 3 teams, I still think they are behind. Number 3, we got the Buffalo Bills, really bouncing back from that first tough loss they had against Pittsburgh, where they were leading and they lost. They smashed the Dolphins and then they smashed Washington. They're looking good. They're clear favorites to win that AFC East. And honestly, I think they're the best team in the AFC right now. I think if they matched up against Kansas City, the way Kansas City's been playing, the way they've been playing, they would, I think, have the edge at least right now. So that's what has them number 3. Number 2, dropping 1 spot from the lead, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Pretty clear. The team that's number 1, we're just going to toss them up now. It's the Rams. They played each other. Of course, Rams handling them. Going into that week, last week, they were both 1 and 2. Rams win, they move up. Pretty simple as that. Rams are looking super strong. Stafford is fitting in perfectly with that team. And the Bucs are still the Bucs. Like, they're still a great team. They just ran into number 1. Let me know what you guys think of these rankings. Of course, make sure you understand that you might be 3-0, but doesn't mean you're going to be competing with the tops of these teams. You still have a lot to prove to me, especially if you're a team that's normally been in the bottom of your division year in and year out. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, smash that like button. We do these kind of videos all season long, and there's more coming on this channel. Hopefully you guys want to join in, and we'll see you guys out there for that next video. Peace out.